Okay, in this video, I removed the power head off of the Johnson 6-horse here, and the reason I had to do that was because I did the impeller change on the lower unit where I took the lower unit off. Here, changed the impeller because we weren't getting any water coming out of the telltale there. But I had some issues getting the impeller back in. It wouldn't go all the way back in, and so I took the power head apart to inspect the seals on the lower crankshaft seals, and I found that some of the seals were broken, sheared, and some of those plastic bits were probably just floating around down in there for years. And when I took the lower unit off and then I tried to replace it, some of it I found out would get into the power head, and that's why I couldn't get the drive shaft all the way into the power head, because there were some plastic pieces there. I didn't know at the time. I originally did an intro explaining this and I lost all the footage. So all this stuff is done. I have the lower unit back on and the whole motor is actually completely fixed and ready to go. But I wanted to just do this intro video to explain what you're going to see, because I did manage to save all the footage where I remove the power head. There's about 6 or 7 screws underneath that you use to get it off, and I show that. But then I also have the footage of taking the plastic pieces out of the power head and replacing the seals and the gaskets, and the gasket, the main gasket underneath the power head too. So we still have all that. I just wanted to come back and do a little intro just to explain what's going on in this video where I changed the lower crankshaft seals. Okay, we are still attempting to get this power head off. Some of these bolts here, I'm going to take the most difficult ones to get off first. I can't get a lot of light in there, but there's a bolt back there that I realize that I can barely get to using one of these small ratchet wrenches with a 5/16. I was going to use the little screwdriver option here with a 5/16 on it, but then I realized I can get the ratchet up there, and some of them are kind of tight on there, so it's easier to use the ratchet. But you see I got a tiny little bit of clearance there for this bolt, so that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to get these tougher ones off first. Spots. Now I'm just going to spin us around here and grab the next most difficult one that's on the opposite side. Oops. Before I go for the easy ones. So we have one. This is on the throttle side. Let's see if we can get enough light so we can see in there. There's one right in there. So I don't know if we can see, but I'll just show you with where the... And I don't know if I can get to that one like I got to the other one, because that throttle is kind of... seems like it's in the way a little. Ooh, maybe a little bit. Okay. Yeah, it's looking like I'll be able to get this one out with this little ratchet as well. In here. See if we can get the other 5. It's supposed to be 7 total. And I noticed they're different. Oh, thought some of them were a different size, but maybe not. All right. And we'll see here if we're going to be able to get released. I don't want to damage the carburetor. Everything looks okay. Okay, look at that. That is the piece we're trying to inspect there, but I'll get this over on the table. Okay, now we have pulled the power head here. I'm going to get more light on that in a second. This is where the drive shaft housing fits in, the crank. And then just to show you here, this is what we're concerned about here. This actually came off on the other housing, but I just put it back here just to kind of show. This is the top part of it here. This is the gasket, which sits on top of that like that. And then this is the little housing that the gasket goes on top of. There. And then you have this housing here, which is like this cap of this spring that's next, and it has an O-ring in it that it looks pretty bad actually. See, it's like half an O-ring or 3/4 of an O-ring left. So we're going to have to definitely check and see if they have that. Next up is we pull the spring, which actually looks in decent shape there. And then there's a housing here. Let's see if I can get over top of it there. That's going to come out. Got an Allen key because it's tougher to get it out of there. Okay. And then that should have, I think, yeah, that's supposed to have an O-ring in it. But if you can tell, it's sheared. I'll have to look into that. I thought that might have had another O-ring in it, but we'll have to see. That might have been sheared off. It looks kind of dirty in there. We'll see. But so it looks like we need some O-rings to replace there, and we'll see if we can get that done. We'll have to look in the parts catalog. Some of these things, obviously, I'd want to replace this gasket here that goes around the power head. But let me just put everything out here. Okay, now just to show you how all these parts fit here. Of course, we have the lower unit, which goes in the bottom of the exhaust housing here, and that's where that sits. The drive shaft on the lower unit, which is this part here. It's got the roll pin here. That will come up on the top through this hole here, and those items that we have out on the table sit on the top here. Let's see if I can get any light in there. And you can see the two slots there that the roll pin will go through. Once the lower unit is under there, these pieces here, this is the first piece, this seat for the spring there, this will go first and will sit on the roll pin like that, and then the spring will sit on top of that piece like that. And then we have this piece here with the O-ring. This is the old one. This sits on top of the spring. Whoops. And then the O-ring sits on top of this piece here. This is the broken O-ring. I'm just doing this to show you. Right, O-ring on top of that piece there. And then next we have this plate. This plate here looks like that. This will sit on top of this like that. Now it's not flush because this O-ring is not flush, but it's broken, so I'm not trying to get it out. Okay, it's like that. And then we have our piece here. That's the gasket, and then the gasket will sit right up on this. This is where the drive shaft fits into the power head once the power head is back on here. Now, it's looking like these are the old parts here. So we've got gasket, plate. This is the, let's see what they call this part. I got a new one here. Let's see here. It's the seal. Okay, that's right. The seal with the O-ring. There's the new seal. Let's see here. And then the new O-ring. Oh, whoops, that's not it. There's the new gasket. And then here we are. This is the new O-ring for the seal. But when I looked at this stuff up close, you can see, I don't know if you can see that the the O-ring and the actual seal itself sheared off a little bit all the way to the end there, if you can see. So the O-ring, that's why we got 3/4 of an O-ring, and then it sheared this off too somehow. This must have happened, my guess is years ago. You can see that. And then what it did was I took off the power head, and then I noticed I had all these little plastic pieces. There's some small ones that came out here, and they're all over. These little plastic pieces, you can't really see them because it's on this black glove. But anyway, see that little plastic pieces like that? And then I noticed, and I didn't want to take this out of there until I did this on camera, but I saw something inside here that, let's see if I can get it out. Where did that go? Oh, there it is. Anyway, there's a big piece of it there coming out here. Now this is a piece of that seal that was up in the shaft there. The big piece. I think we got some more pieces yet. And this is why I couldn't get the lower unit in, because, ooh, there's another big one that just came down. When I took the crankshaft, when I took the drive shaft out of the lower unit, I think that these pieces were just probably floating around for years, probably around this spring, because with the drive shaft in there, they couldn't get up. They couldn't have got up in here. But once I removed the drive shaft to service the impeller, and then I went to put it back in, I think that some of these loose pieces in there got stuck up in the shaft there, and that's what prevented me from getting the drive shaft back up in there. So, let's see. It looks pretty clean, but anyway, I'm going to make sure I get that completely cleaned out before I replace it. But I also have, like I said, I have a new seal, so that, and new O-ring, so that I'm going to replace this part completely and clear all the debris out of there, and then we should be fine as far as getting a lower unit back in there. And I also am replacing the gasket here on the bottom of the power head, which is this gasket. Let's see, part numbers are hard to read on these, but there it is. That's the power head gasket. You could tell here, and when I took, you could go by the video, when I took out the screws on the power head, a lot of them had oil in them here. Some of these screws did, and then also there was just this film on the bottom here, oil film, and that's another sign that that gasket was failing. So I think once we put our new gasket on here, all that lubricant is not going to come out or get into the screws, because it should be sealed up a lot better. So we're going to put a new seal on, and we're also going to put these new parts on, and then we're going to hopefully be able to successfully get the lower unit back in. Now I'm just going to see how easy this gasket wants to come off. Doesn't seem like she wants to come off too easy. Might be some work getting this. Okay, well, if I just start pulling, she'll come off nice, and I won't have to do as much scrapey. This is the original 1976 Powerhead gasket here, and it feels like it. It's real stiff. Oh, that part came off. Oh, look at that. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. It's coming. Ooh, all right. Look at that. Nasty. Okay. Now,
I'm just gonna look at all that crap.
Let's see. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit and then we'll put the gasket on. Okay, so I've cleaned up this gasket here as much as I'm going to, and then I've also cleaned up a little bit in here, the whole thing, sprayed some carb cleaner and cleaned it up, and scraped it as much as possible so that the new gasket will fit snugly. Here's the gasket again, part number on the gasket. Okay, so there's that. And then, let's see here. Where are we? Seal. Let's just, here's our seal, new seal. And here's our new gasket for the housing here. Seal, gasket, and O-ring. O-ring. There we are. So the O-ring will just go in the top of the seal here. We'll just place that O-ring in there. It'll fit snugly. We're not sheared off. That's good. There we are, O-ring. The spring goes on the other side. So the spring, the plate here, other side of the plate. This will go on this side here, the gasket. Okay, so let's take everything. Let's just grab a new bowl here. We'll grab all of our parts. Okay. And what we're gonna do is, okay, we're gonna put this plate down first. I want to say it sits like that. Yep, I think there's a couple grooves there, so it sits in the right spot. So you got the plate in there. Okay, there we are. And then the spring will sit on top of that. Just get my camera set up here. Okay, right in there, the spring. I want to maybe just spray a little deep creep on that spring. We're reusing the old spring, it looked fine, but maybe put a little lubricant on that spring. Okay, and then we're going to put our new seal O-ring up on top of that spring. There's the brand new seal. We're reusing our metal plate here, the flat part of it down. So that's gonna go. How I'm gonna make that stay in there. And then the gasket on top. It's gonna be interesting to see how I'm gonna get that to stay. Or maybe I can put this in the Alright, so the gasket is going to go here, but it was slipping off and I realized it's probably going to be a good idea to grease it up here a little bit, and that way it'll make it sit there while I put the power head on. Might make it a little easier on myself. Didn't really want to use gasket sealant in this area because sometimes that stuff can, once it hardens up, and can get inside there and cause some damage. But a little grease should hold it in place, and that's all I really want to do until I can get those screws in. But tried to put the power head on and it was slipping off. I'm also going to have an issue with the seals and everything, kind of getting those down there, and I think I'm going to put some grease on the top gasket and the plate so that it sits on the power head, and then I'll try and place it down. It's not going to be the easiest thing to do to get this power head to seat correctly with this new gasket and then all the seals in there. Kind of similar to getting that lower unit in. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Just want to get this grease kind of on the edges just to hold that gasket in place. Okay. Here we are. So I didn't need all that grease there. Okay, that should hold that in place. And then I also have, this is my gasket and plate here. It's not gonna sit here. I'll show you. So the spring goes in here. I got the bottom plate for the seal for the spring in there, and then here's the seal with the O-ring goes on top of the spring. The drive shaft will go through all of this coming up from the lower unit. Let's see here. That will sit on there, but once you put this on top where it goes, it's not going to stay while we get the power head on. So what I'm going to try and do is put a little grease here around this gasket on both sides. Get a little more grease. I'm going to put this on both sides. Alright, and then that goes on like that. It'll hold the plate on it, hopefully. And then I'll grease this up a little. Maybe just a touch more of this grease because I want it to really... This part of the gasket is going to go right on the bottom of the power head. Okay. Here we are. So here we are. I'm just going to place this. Okay. So the drive shaft will be able to get through there without a problem. Okay, now that will hopefully stay. Okay. Now for the hard part. Trying to get this, everything to sit correctly in there. Ooh, seems like it went down good. Okay, now I had this bolt here. This is the 3/8. There's two that are bigger. I left it in because of this housing. And so that'll be the first one I try and get back in here. Ooh. Power head's coming up a little, but you know, I have to believe that since the power head went down flush, that seal is seated correctly, because there's, once it gets down there and the power head's on, there's only a small space it could actually fit. So I think if it was off kilter, it probably wouldn't have gone down all the way. So that's a 3/8. I have one more screw that's a 3/8 that goes in this next one closest to it right here. Okay. Okay, and there we are. The power head is back on. Now, hopefully, the lower unit's seated correctly. I'm not going to put the gas line or the throttle linkage part back here yet, or the choke over here, or anything else before I know that I can get that lower unit back in there, because maybe I'd have to take it off again. Hopefully not, but so attempt number 2, getting the lower unit back in after we cleaned all the gunk out of the crank, so we can get the drive shaft back in there, and so we'll try that next. Okay, we have got the power head back on, and I've also reconnected the choke here, and I didn't do that on video because it's on the carburetor video, so if you want to see the choke going back on, you can refer to the carburetor video. I've also put the lower gas line, that 5/16 gas line, back on. If you want to see the video of that, you can refer to the fuel filter, fuel pump video, where I changed the fuel lines in the fuel filter and fuel pump. There's a couple other items here that I had to remove that I'm going to replace to get this power head off, and I didn't take these off yet, so I'm going to film putting these on. Actually, I don't know if that's a good spot. So this is the throttle linkage here we had to take off because it's connected to the power head. I'm just going to hit that with a little grease on the head of it there. A little marine grease there, and it's looking like you're going to put it this way because this connects here. So I'm just going to put this down the little slot here, and however way I can fit it down. Looks like I'm gonna, doesn't matter if that little grommet gets a little grease on it too, it's probably good for it. Let's see if I can, I don't know if you can see, I got some shadows. I'll try her anyway. Looks like this thing's gonna be a little bit of a chore getting back in. Don't want to rip this grommet here because I don't want to have to replace, I want to only replace as little amount of stuff as possible. I'll just work that in maybe. It's a good thing I greased it. Okay, I got it into the, through the grommet there. I don't know if it's got to go a certain way. Oh, okay. There we are. So it's coming down. It just fits into that slot there. Okay. So it's locked into that slot. Lastly, we've got our clip. This clip piece goes in on the top. We have this, we connected these two pieces here, and the clip just kind of goes over the top of them, if I can remember right, but it's hard to get your fingers back there. I got it off with this. I don't know how that's gonna go for me. I don't know the best way to get this on. Alright, I'm just going to come in from the side. I don't know if that's going to work for me. Just take my finger and push it from the back. Oh, okay. We got it. Amazing. Alright, so there it is with the clip on that kind of covers the that little part that connects there. So it's looking like that is all together. Now we want to get this pull cord put back together. Let's turn this. We have the pull cord. We had to take this out and take the handle off it. Let's see. Where are we here? When we... The handle's all greasy. Okay.